Now, critics of the war, of the involvement in Afghanistan from the start, even after 9/11 happened, have often made reference to the deployment of thousands of troops into the region around Afghanistan 4 months before the attack of 9/11. But this has been exaggerated in the media because, of course, there are 1,100 American bases throughout the world, but they are not all of the same size as the massive Vatican-sized fortress of the Green Zone in Iraq. They are often quite small listening posts, and so while special forces may have been around in the region because of the tensions between the Central Asian republics, China, Russia, and America, because of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization bloc, which is seeking to make an alliance between Russia and China and the Central Asian republics, which of course goes against the United States strategy of encircling Russia and China. This doesn't, and of course, being putting American forces in Central Asia to counter Iranian efforts to create a sphere of influence there as well. It doesn't mean that the American forces were in their thousands waiting for 9/11 to happen. They couldn't possibly have known that would happen. The only people who could have known any pre-planning about 9/11, given given their influence within the Western intelligence agency, would have been the ISI, and they would have passed it on to Al Qaeda. That's why they would have chosen. Al Qaeda chose the exact time that Vigilant Warrior, an exercise that goes on every year but slightly changed in timing, that was happening on 9/11 happened as a Cold War style exercise against Russian attack, and drew American aircraft and Canadian aircraft into this scenario, which only left 5 aircraft on the whole eastern seaboard, and that's when Al Qaeda chose to make their attack. From a military standpoint, it makes perfect sense. But with the Obama surge, we have now gone to gone in a direction of two strategies of tension. As I said about the Taliban, they have their strategy of tension to cause terror and to draw support away from the Western forces. Now, General Petreaus said that in 2007 things had even got worse, and it was spiralling down with twice as much violence in 2008 as there was in 2007. General Barry Mcafferty on Flora TV said to the University of New York, said that these groups of narco traffickers and Taliban and Al Qaeda are moving around in battalion sized forces with encoded telecommunications, automatic weapons, brand new, all the Western gear and Chinese made equipment. And as I said, the Taliban and Al Qaeda, because of the oil industry and because of the drug trade, have almost an unlimited budget. Now it comes to the much more dirty phase of operations. Not that hasn't been happening all the way through the war, and this is the second strategy of tension used by the United States. Obama obviously has been advised, or for political reasons, he's chosen a strategy of tension of his own to force the Taliban to either fight or flee into Pakistan, which will then mean that the Pakistanis will have to fight the Taliban and that will mean that the Pakistanis will have to choose between their rogue ISI intelligence agency or the Americans. Um, Now, of course, there's a flaw in this because the Americans rely on Karachi Airport, since they're 600 miles away from the sea, for all their supplies to come in. And that's why they've been working with the Russians to bring in extra supplies through Russian territory and Kazakhstan, and also from Turkey. But they still need air bases, and they should still have some way of getting um, uh, routes from the sea. But as you've seen in a massive attack on trucking and supplies going through a direct land route through Pakistan, so it shows that the insurgency really is throughout Pakistan, and even was very close to the Swat Valley is of course very close to Islamabad, the capital city of Pakistan. Now comes this dirty phase, which will probably end the war as we know it, and that will be the flooding of Pakistan with CIA operatives on dirty black missions, so to speak. Now, they will probably institute their own strategy attention, as they've done in many, many countries. If you're familiar with the series Gladio, this led to the CIA operations being infiltrated by the Italian mafia when it happened in Italy, and by different communist and fascist groups. I don't think this will happen this time. I think the CIA have learnt their lesson, but it will really be a battle between the ISI, Al-Qaeda operatives and the CIA on an intelligence level basis, and they will use proxies of different factions within Pakistan and Afghanistan to do the actual fighting for them. You'll probably see an escalation in bomb attacks, with different factions being forced by this strategy attention to attack one another in Pakistan, and of course the more pro-American elements will probably be helped significantly by CIA funding, but they'll all stay in the shadows. And so we may see yet another war in the future between America and Afghanistan, elements of the Taliban in a different form in the future, maybe 10 years from now. What General Barry Mcafferty said was that Obama should have told the American people that they were into not a counterinsurgency war. It simply means to get the people on side and gain intelligence, but into a war that is for nation building. I may do a vid on why I think the United States is not built for this role, because they've reduced their army to the lowest point since in numbers since before the First World War. It's only 590,000 men for a large power, which is dependent on sea power projection. They've taken the model of the old British Empire, which sustained a quarter of the world's territory with only 200,000 troops, or 100,000 troops if you discount the Indian Army, which is very sedentary, and use sea power to project that force around the world. So you're going in a small but very experienced force. Now, I'm sure the Taliban will be reduced in numbers significantly, but the only way we're going to win this war is to decapitate the Saudi and Bin Laden families, the elitist feudal families within the Gulf, and to actually get down to the intelligence that is gathered about individual Taliban members, and to threaten the families of those people so that it is a higher cost to them to switch sides. There is an element of terror that has to go into beating a counter-insurgency, but then we should always build the country up to provide the first world services and construction and living standards. I I think that's how we'll win this war.